Hey, Triple Cross, welcome back. You're here with Casey and Q today. Check Q's screen name up there. He's gotten a little fire in the comment section lately that he feels like he needs to fire back to. So we're here for it. That's what Triple Cross is all about, is debating and disagreeing. We're missing John today, but we're going to be recapping the NFL Week 2 matchups, and Q and I are also going to make some picks for what we think is going to happen in Week 3. Q, before we get into it, man, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Last week was a crazy week, so I'm ready to talk about it because some interesting picks for sure. And I'm looking forward to next week as well.
Definitely. Yeah, it's NFL is already wild. Week 2 did not disappoint. Lots of crazy storylines, so let's get right into it. We'll go ahead and pull up the results from Week 2 here. We'll just go game by game here. Chargers and Chiefs is this first game. This was earlier in the week. It feels like forever ago now, but let's go ahead and click into it just to remind ourselves kind of how it went. The Chiefs did get the best of the Chargers, but it was a close matchup. Do you have any main takeaways from this game, Q?
I mean, it's interesting because I feel, with the Chiefs losing Hill this season, I thought the Chargers might have a slight edge on them, but it seems like even without him, the Chiefs are a solid team regardless. And that just goes to show how skilled, Patrick Mahomes is. He's really the ideal quarterback that you want to build your team around, because he just shows his skill level and everything. And going head to head with Justin Herbert, who's another solid quarterback in the league. It was definitely a close game, I'd say. But yeah, Chiefs came out with the edge. So
yeah, man, I couldn't agree. This is like two premier quarterbacks at this point in the NFL. I do give the nod to Mahomes as far as NFL. Forget about fantasy for a minute, but NFL quarterbacks, tough to say there's anybody better than Mahomes, or at least anybody a lot better than Mahomes. I think he's going to will this team to a lot of victories. Like you said, missing Tyreek, you wondered how that was going to go this season, but all of a sudden guys like Clyde have emerged a little bit more this year. He's been kind of like hit or miss in other performances before this year, but this time around he's looking good. Travis Kelce, old reliable, and the Chiefs are always going to mix in like 3 or 4 guys who would just be completely irrelevant on other teams, but Mahomes makes them look like great receivers. At this point, I think honestly Herbert has a better cast around him with Eckler, superstar, Mike Williams, basically a superstar as long as he doesn't get hurt in the middle of a game. And he was even missing Keenan Allen in this game, and he still looked the part. Both these teams are going to be super competitive. I think all 3 of us had both these teams going to the playoffs. So on our playoff predictions show, which if you haven't watched, go back and watch. I don't have anything really incredible from this game other than that. It was kind of what you expected. A good game.
Yeah. Good close game for sure.
Yeah, pretty indicative of where that division is, that AFC West. Just nice competitive division for the most part. No spoilers. We'll get to that in a sec. Next up here, Jets, Browns. This one, a little more to this one. I don't know how we didn't talk about it beforehand before this game, but the whole storyline for this game, I feel like leading up to it for the week, was Brownie the Elf dominated headlines. Not a lot to talk about when you're the Jets, it seems like, and when you're Cleveland, it's a pretty similar thing. Usually everything that people want to talk about is negative for the Browns because of Deshaun Watson. And you just wonder, man, are the Browns going to break out and all of a sudden become a good franchise ever? And they just never fail to disappoint and make you feel foolish for even thinking that up. Because they blew this one, man. They blew this one bad.
They did indeed. And I think, Jacoby, he's no Deshaun Watson, but I almost want to, I'm very curious to see the dynamic of when he comes back, and what this team could potentially turn into with him at the charge. So, I feel like, especially this game, the Jets, they should have won this. the Browns should have beat the Jets. I mean,
I get you. So I think I said it on our playoff prediction show, but I think the Jets are, I mean, maybe not underrated because they're not great, but I think the Browns might be overrated a little bit sometimes because people want to cheer for them for whatever reason. And the Jets are turning around that franchise, I think. You know, they've got some good pieces on both sides of the ball. I think they finally have some decent coaching in the building. Of course, I think that because it's a disciple from Kyle Shanahan from the 49ers, Robert Saleh, who took over there as the head coach. And brought some of the Niners coaching staff with him when he left. But I mean, like, this is where I would highlight in this game on both sides of the ball. We have guys who are actually busting out with two QB2s in. You know, Joe Flacco is not the starter for the Jets. Jacoby Brissett is not the starter for the Browns, ideally. These guys are stepping up. They're backups. Joe Flacco, by the way, little tidbit. So far, through 2 weeks in the NFL, he's thrown over 100 pass attempts. He's at like 102, I want to say. That is a record, I think, in the NFL. So, wow. Another record held by Joe Flacco. Not exactly what you want, though. It means you're behind a lot. But squeak this one out. And back to this receiving part. Finally, Amari Cooper looks the part. You know, I think it's a tall task without Deshaun Watson. You know, and he left Dallas to come here to Cleveland. He's playing with Jacoby Brissett. The team is just – it's a different thing altogether. It's not an ideal situation. But he actually looked good this game. Pulled out over 100 receiving yards. I thought he caught a touchdown too. It doesn't say on here, but I think he did catch a touchdown. Mm-hmm. Amari Cooper, I've always been a fan of. He's an alpha in any receiving room he steps into. At least that has been the case. Maybe if he got put in certain rooms, he wouldn't be. But and then a breakout here by Garrett Wilson, who the Jets low key have pretty good receivers. Like Elijah Moore is no slouch. Garrett Wilson is good. You got Breece Hall and Michael Carter looking pretty legit out of the backfield. You know, I think Breece Hall is a little bit more the guy who's supposed to ground and pound the rock. Michael Carter is supposed to be that kind of scat back, receiving back kind of guy. But Hall got a few receptions in too this game. I mean, anything goes with Joe Flacco under center. I was impressed by the Jets. I think they earned this one. And I got to mention, the Browns were just so ready to celebrate. They had if you saw right in the fourth quarter, they had a bunch of little kids on the sideline, waiting to rush the field to take celebration pics in the middle of the field on the new Brownie the Elf thing, which I hate. Honestly, Brownie the Elf is dumb. And it brought me endless joy to watch their hopes crumble.
No,
Do you have any other feelings about this, Q?
I just feel, personally, I think the Browns have so much more talent, I would say. And like you said, in some aspects, they could be considered, overrated just because, Amari Cooper, coming from Dallas, it was him and CeeDee Lamb. They're usually 1-2 punch with Dak when he's healthy. But I think coming to the Browns, it's a whole different team, completely run a different way. I think he's going to take some time to really get in the groove of things. And this was a solid game for him by all means. He had a touchdown, 101 yards. That's a solid game for sure. But I think, without Deshaun, it's just going to be tough for them to, get used to how things are going to be later on in the season. But yeah, that's kind of my thing on that. And Nick Chubb, it's Nick Chubb. He's always going to do his thing. So I think there's no trouble there for sure. It's just a matter of, whether or not Jacoby can really adjust and be as clutch as possible in those types of situations when the game is on the line.
Yeah, man. I mean, just a quick look here to what you're saying. The Browns are run different. Look at everybody on their team who had 2 or more receptions. I mean, we got running back, tight end, and Amari Cooper. So he does definitely stand out. I don't actually know. David Bell might be another tight end. I'm not 100% sure who David Bell even is. Demetric Fulton, I know, is a little bit more of a hybrid, it's just a ball handler. I guess he's technically a receiver, but he kind of a running back as well. Yeah. So, but I mean, there's no, they barely show up on the stat sheet anyway. So this is going to be Amari Cooper's chance to hey man, you're going to get a lot of targets. dwarfed only by Garrett Wilson on the other side, the rookie. They paid up for him. I think he was a top 10 draft pick in this year's draft. This dude looks good. And I don't know if you watched this game, but he took a shot and he was grabbing at his lower back. Like he was face down in the ground. And I even saw like the legs kick a little bit, both hands reaching behind him, just like obviously in a lot of pain. And then he comes back out like 5 minutes later. He was on the sidelines for not too long, but he caught one of his touchdowns after that. This dude looked incredible. He's got other good receivers around him. I mean, Elijah Moore, like I said, is talented. Corey Davis, I mean, I'd call him the third best receiver on this team. And he's not exactly like the guy you think of when you think of like a great receiver. But if he's your third best receiver on your team, you're okay. Like you got pretty good receivers. I'm really excited to see what happens with this team when Zach Wilson comes back. Not a lot of people are huge fans of that guy. But I mean, being honest, like he's even when he's not doing well, he's the fun kind of quarterback to watch because he's going to make a lot of weird stuff happen. And Joe Flacco is the opposite. Even when things are going good, he is not fun to watch. He's a statue back there, and you just wonder, like, is this really the best you guys could find? But
yeah.
I mean, this is a team that's going to win by scheme. That's what I like about them. You know, they have a good, sound running approach. They throw up the ball a lot with Joe Flacco under center for sure. And I think they're going to surprise people and win some games. Let's not dwell on this game, though. Let's keep it moving. Keep it going quick here. Next. Panthers Giants. So one thing here. All the spreads have been covered, right? Yeah. In all these games, the spread has been covered, which only if you're a better. We're not really that kind of show, but if it matters to you. All the spreads were covered so far in these games. But Panthers, Giants, obviously the Panthers have a little press boost just having Baker Mayfield. There's a lot of drama with him over the offseason. This is actually the first we're like recounting performances in the NFL. Q, do you have any particular like thoughts on how Baker is done in the first 2 weeks on his new team?
I will say week 1 was probably like a little bit more impressive than week 2. In terms of like wide receivers that really impressed me week 1 and kind of let me down week 2 on the Panthers side is I'd say Robbie Anderson. Yeah, he week 1 right off the bat was just like blazing through the gates, and then week 2 I'm just like, what's going on here? So I mean, I'd say it's very early. It's very early to really call it and be like Baker Mayfield is not a good fit here. I know there was all that drama around having Baker Mayfield on the team in the first place, but you know we'll see. I think by week 5 we'll know like, okay, what are the Panthers doing this season? I mean, they're 0-2 now, so you know there's only so much that they can do to even prove. But week 5 we'll know for sure.
Yeah, I think my quick take on the Panthers is, Baker, poor Baker, right? He comes from a terrible situation in Cleveland where it brings them to the playoffs for the first time in decades, right? Then they kick him out. Get out of here, Baker. We don't want you anymore. They replace him with, as far as talent, sure, they upgraded with Deshaun Watson, but what a nightmare they made for themselves, going for him there. And they just disrespected Baker. I don't think there's any two ways about it. He comes into the Panthers, who paid nothing for him. I think they got like a 6th or 7th round pick. The Browns, I think they got like a 6th or 7th rounder for Baker Mayfield, a starting quarterback in the NFL. That's so cheap. Just so much disrespect coming. And then what do the Panthers do? They put him in a quarterback competition with Sam Darnold. Like, hey, if you make the move to go get Mayfield when you already have Darnold on the roster, like, what are you doing? Like, you got to show faith in your new guy because obviously Darnold, he knows that you don't have any faith in him. I think I would categorize the early season woes for the Panthers at 0-2 as coaching issues, or at least like management issues. Matt Rule, the head coach. I don't think he's done much to show that he deserves to be a head coach in the league. Like CMC is CMC, and he was long before Matt Rule showed up in Carolina. So like when he has a good game, I'm like, yeah, that's what he's gonna do. You could make me the head coach for the Panthers, and Christian McCaffrey's gonna get 100 yards. Like that's gonna happen. I'm disappointed in the connection with DJ Moore. Hasn't really been established yet. DJ Moore is one of those guys you want to believe could be an elite receiver, but it just always seems like there's like the stars aren't aligned, and maybe I give him too much the benefit of the doubt. Maybe part of it's on him. You know, he hasn't really made a great connection with any quarterback in the league in his career so far. I still have hope for him, but I'm starting to wonder a little bit more.
Yeah.
Anything on the other side of the ball? The 2-0 Giants. Is that a shocker or what?
That is a shocker. I definitely was not expecting to, come off hot off the bat. But, Daniel Jones, he hasn't shown me anything where I'm like, okay. I mean, given the circumstances, he hasn't really, played like exceptional. But, he's done enough to win the game. And I think that's all that matters. And he didn't throw any interceptions last game. So I think that's quite impressive. But yeah, I mean, Giants look like a solid team. I don't know how far they will get, but look like a solid team.
Yeah, I can't remember who they played in week 1. I don't know if you do off the top of your head. But I mean, beating the Panthers doesn't impress me all that much. They did not beat them by very much, and they did not put that many points on the board. Honestly, when I watch Daniel Jones, I want to believe in the guy, right? Like people do that stat comparison for his career, like him versus Josh Allen, how it actually looks really similar. Like they could almost be the same guy. Like that's just, I think that's throwing so much disrespect at one of the best quarterbacks currently in the game, at least.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones just isn't there. Every time I watch him, I'm just like, man, you shouldn't be a starter. Like you shouldn't be next year, at least. Like I get giving him one last chance, but I don't expect the Giants to build off this. 2-0. I'm sure the odds go, really in a team's favor when they're 2-0 for going to the playoffs. I would bet a considerable amount of money the Giants miss the playoffs still. Like
I would agree. And plus all these games that they're playing, like so week 1 they played the Titans and it was like they won by 1 point, I believe. So it's like these are very close games, and obviously close games like this early in the season are gonna affect you. So hopefully they pull it out and surprise us at the end of the season and like make it to the playoffs or something. But who knows? I personally don't think Daniel Jones is the guy to do that and take that team to the playoffs. But with the way things have been going so far, who knows?
Yeah, I wouldn't put it all on Jones, just to be clear. I think the whole team is pretty bad. But you mentioned the Titans, and we'll wait till we get there. But, man, they look terrible this year so far.
Yeah.
Okay, going in order here. I'll try to speed it up unless we find juicy ones, which actually this next one is a pretty juicy one. So maybe we'll speed it up a little more after this matchup because the Dolphins and the Ravens might have been – I mean, there's some competition for this week, but this might have been the most exciting game to watch. The Dolphins, another Shanahan disciple, Mike McDaniel, the head coach over there, starting out 2-0 in his head coaching career. That's fantastic. I love that guy. He's also great in press conferences if you watch any. I know before we started shooting, Q, you said, hey, this was actually fun to watch Dolphins football. And like, I don't think either of us have experienced that like in our lifetime, probably.
Never.
We weren't around when the old school Dolphins went undefeated back in the day,
definitely
back in the greasy days.
Yeah, but like it's super impressive because like I said, I wasn't expecting it at all. And obviously, it's Tyreek Hill, so he's a very impressive wide receiver, but never did I ever think like he would play the way he played last Sunday. So man, I'll tell you, I was watching that game, I was like, wow, Waddle and Hill and Tua together, this is gonna be a season for the Dolphins. Like it was actually just and also watching Lamar Jackson is another thing. Like that's him alone as a quarterback is just like it's super entertaining to watch. But like seeing the other team, go back and forth, and then Tua just doing his thing, and like Tyreek Hill is just running circles around the defense, and Waddle is just catching these crazy passes. It's like it was a lot of fun to watch. So I think the Dolphins are playoff contenders, undoubtedly.
I
undoubtedly.
completely agree. Totally separate from like the 2-0 Giants.
Yeah,
I believe in the Dolphins team. I think
yeah,
what you're going to see is more of the same of this. I mean, Tua did end up throwing 50 passes, but I can't imagine he had 25 when the fourth quarter started. I mean, they were just chucking up the ball. But I mean, even like just without going down to the receiving yet, looking at the rushing, this is the stuff you will see from this system. I know it really well because it came from the 49ers. Mike McDaniel was essentially he was the run game coordinator on the Niners 2 years ago and the offensive coordinator last year. If you know anything about the Niners football, they run super efficiently and they run a lot. And you're going to see this stuff. The two leading rushers, this average yards per carry is crazy. Not to mention they both ripped off some big runs. So, I mean, you can see Edmonds only had 5 yards on 4 rushes and then one big one. And Mostert's always been this kind of guy who rips off some big ones. So you're going to see high yards per attempt on the ground with them. But if that doesn't do enough in some high scoring game like this one, you wonder, like, can they win it by throwing the ball? Can you put the game into his hands? And I mean, I'm not giving all the credit to Tua. He played great and everything. But when you have a cast of receivers like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, I mean, I said it back on our playoff prediction show. The reason I called them a dark horse is because that's the best 1-2 punch in the league as far as like wide receivers. So I think Tua can obviously be successful. I think he will continue to be. I think we're going to see some heartbreaking losses and maybe even some terrible games where we go, maybe we got that wrong. Maybe he's not the guy. But I tend to think they're going to make the playoffs. If we did the playoff predictions episode now after 2 weeks, I wouldn't even call them a dark horse anymore. I would predict them to make the playoffs for sure.
yeah. I'd say one thing that's kind of worrisome, especially with that many attempts from Tua, I think it comes down to the defense. Like, there's certain defenses you don't want to throw 50 passes into the air against. Like, it's a very, very dangerous game. You can sometimes put the game on the line throwing that many passes in the air. But yeah, I think with the Ravens, it was warranted. Like, they knew, offensive coordinator knew what he was doing, and it was all very calculated. So um, if it's going to be like a running game, it'll be interesting. I want to see. I wonder. I wonder what the stat line would have been if we saw Tua only throw like 30 passes
Well,
instead of
I think that's normally what you'll see. I think even week 1, you could look back at it. I think he only threw, closer to that amount in that game. But they'll do this when they have to, right? I think they do want to run the ball, just schematically. But when it comes down to it and they need it, these guys caught 11 passes apiece, and both of them had one crazy long one, and both of them had 2 touchdowns. Look at these target numbers. I mean, that's nuts. I don't think they had thrown the ball all that much coming into the fourth quarter. I mean, I said it off air, but I have to say it on the show. Tua threw 4 passing touchdowns in the fourth quarter alone. That is incredible. And so on the other side here, though, Q, with Lamar and the Ravens, not what they expected to have happen in this game, I don't think. Mixing up my points. I'm getting triple crossed here. To your point about, like, there's some defenses you don't want to throw that much against. I agree with you, but historically, the Ravens would be one of those defenses, and this is who they did it to. So I even wonder about that. I think that they won't want to throw that much, but when they need to, I think they'll be able to. So that's for what it's worth. What do you think on the other side of the ball?
Dude, honestly, if I'm real, and I hate to be that guy, but the Ravens threw this game. Like, they had the game in the bag, and they threw the game trying to convert on fourth downs. Like, it's so frustrating because, like, I hate to see things like that happen, but it's just like all the more credit to the Dolphins. But like, trying so hard to convert on fourth downs when you just know it hasn't worked out at all game long. You're trying to convert on third, it doesn't work. And then you think it's going to be a little bit different on fourth, and it's not. And it's like you guys are doing the same thing. Like, you're just trying to run instead of passing or anything. But yeah, they threw the game. They had it in the bag, I think, and they just threw the game. So, yeah, with that being said, I think it was more of like a coaching issue rather than a performance issue. Lamar Jackson had an amazing game. I think he should have won the game. But just these the play calling at the end was just absolutely terrible. And also the Dolphins just like clutched up and then won the game. So I'm not going to give the throw to the Ravens and be like, oh, it's all their fault. The reason why the Dolphins won. The Dolphins won because they were just absolutely clutch in the fourth quarter. But I think even with the clutchness of the Dolphins, like the Ravens could have play called a little bit better to secure the game. Even if it meant punting, at the end instead of trying to convert. Like,
I'll go as far as to say is I think this game for both teams is pretty prescriptive of the rest of the season. I think the Dolphins are going to surprise people, win a bunch of games, do fairly well, and it's unpopular. But on our playoff prediction show, we all three snubbed the Ravens, said they aren't going to make the playoffs. They honestly haven't done anything to make me think otherwise so far. I mean, Lamar Jackson individually had a great game, sure. I mean, threw for 318 and 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, higher QBR than Tua, but I think QBR is an overrated stat that I don't think matters all that much, really. And then Lamar Jackson, he's RB1 on his team, too, 119 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown, an 80-yard run. I mean, obviously a one-of-a-kind quarterback, but I don't want to call it a gimmick or anything. The NFL is catching up to this offense as it does when you have a guy who runs from the quarterback position all the time. You saw it. Actually, the same offensive coordinator was Colin Kaepernick's offensive coordinator, or at least quarterback coach, one or the other, in San Francisco. And the league adapted. And Lamar Jackson is better than Colin Kaepernick, no doubt. But it's also been longer. The NFL knows that this is what they're going to try to do. No other person had as many rushing attempts as Lamar. Like, when it's coming, I'm not saying it's easy to defend, but good teams, I think, will get victories over the Ravens, and I think they'll ultimately miss the playoffs because of it. So
indeed.
We took a little time on that one. I think maybe we don't even need to click into some of these, honestly. Colts and Jaguars. Do we want to click into that one?
We do not want to click on that one. That was a blowout, which was surprising.
It was big time. I called for the Colts to be in the playoffs at the end of this year. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to be completely real on this. I'm getting nervous about that prediction. I don't think it's completely over yet. Actually, a tie helps them not be 0-2. That could it could make or break them when it comes to like playoff seeding. We'll see. And I think the Jaguars are not a good team. Exactly. I think they won't make the playoffs either, but they're looking way better than last year. Trevor Lawrence in his second year, he seems to have taken that like sophomore leap quite a bit. And I'll go as far as to say as of today, I might predict that they have a pretty good chance next year of making the playoffs, and maybe even sneaking in there this year. But we'll see. I think Matt Ryan is going to get it together on the Colts too. I think they're gonna win some games, but man, they look terrible.
They did not look good at all. Matt Ryan, wasn't I trying to tell you guys that Matt Ryan was washed?
Well, I'll shoot him this much bail because, yeah, he looked terrible. But he was missing his number one receiver this game. Michael Pittman was out this game. So, not ideal for sure, but he looked pretty bad. And I still don't think he's going to put the team on his back. I just think he's, with a lot of the young talent they have, I think his presence is helpful being a veteran. But, yeah, I mean, it's getting shaky, that playoff prediction. I'll grant you that. It's shaky. Next one up here. We actually have something interesting here. We can skip past this less interesting game. Tampa Bay and the Saints. This one, did you get a chance to watch much of this one?
Yes, I did. It's an interesting game. Started off a little chippy, but the Bucs pulled it together, towards the middle end. So it's a good game. Yeah. It was a good game. And traditionally, we know how these Bucs Saints games go. It's always very, very competitive. They're always at each other's necks. Like, there's always a fight or something. Tom Brady throwing an iPad across the field. Like, there's always something.
Yeah, no, and this one was no exception. For those who didn't watch the game, Mike Evans was ejected and suspended a game. Also, on the other side, Lattimore what's his first name? The cornerback for the Saints. First name is escaping me right now. He was also kicked out of the game. yeah, that changes things up quite a bit. I mean, he's always following him around. He's shadowing Evans usually, and he's been the guy who can shut down Evans pretty much like nobody else in the league. So they've already been banged up at receiver, and obviously they don't have Gronk this year. Godwin was not able to suit up for this one because of injury. Julio, I think, also because of injury wasn't able to suit up. The next best guy on the depth chart was a guy they just picked up this offseason who didn't get a chance to really like develop chemistry with Brady because he was injured in the preseason and in training camp, which is Russell Gage. So, Tom Brady's out here working with, not ideal pieces. His one great receiver is getting locked down. If Mike Evans is suspended and this suspension holds up, because I heard he's trying to appeal it, we'll see how that goes. But if he's missing next week, I mean, what is Tom Brady going to do? He has nobody to throw ball to. So a little nervous there. They did squeak out the win, so it's 2-0. The Bucs, I don't think that surprises anybody really. They look like a playoff team to me, even though it's a little bit bumpy right now. But they've done this with Tom Brady. They look a little bumpy at the beginning of the year. They figure it out, and by the playoffs, they look like a real playoff team, a Super Bowl contender, right about there. Anything else on this? Maybe from the Saints side of the ball?
Yeah, I mean, Jameis Winston is doing Jameis Winston things. Like he always seems to
the knees or the elbows or the lower body.
Yeah, anatomy professor Jameis. Like he really impresses me a lot. But I think 40 attempts, three interceptions is like like if he can kind of like chill with the interceptions, he would just be such a good quarterback. Like he threw less picks.
This is the thing for me. 13 targets to the rookie Chris Olave, he's an impressive talent, no doubt. I think Jameis is struggling, man. 4 different fractures in his spine, or his back, I guess is how it's been reported. I assume it's his spine. I don't know what else you can fracture in your back. Which they say there's no further risk of further injury. But 4 different breaks, he's just playing through it. I guess there's probably no surgery you can have to fix that. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but sounds like he's playing through some pain for sure. He's a good quarterback. I don't think he'll ever really be a great quarterback in the NFL, but hyper-targeting his rookie, I think that's actually a good sign for the future. And if you didn't see, these were all super deep attempts. Like he was throwing the ball down the field. So, I mean, if they develop that chemistry where they're able to actually connect on those, mix in Michael Thomas, who has been great over the first 2 weeks, and Jarvis Landry, a battle-tested receiver. It's a good number 3 to have. I mean, they're going to be a good team. That's their defense is that chippy defense. I think they're going to be solid, but couldn't quite rise to the occasion here. I think Tampa Bay is just a better team.
Yeah, agreed. And they have so many more weapons that are not even active right now, so it'd be interesting.
Yeah, definitely 2 teams to keep your eyes on. Gonna matter down the stretch whether they're in the hunt or ultimately do make the playoffs. Okay, moving on here onto Washington and the Lions. Maybe we'll click in here because there's probably things we want to touch on in this, but we'll try to do this one a little quicker. Try to save some time. Carson Wentz, I'll just start off by saying Carson Wentz has been impressive. First 2 weeks of the season, I was not a believer in this pickup. I kind of thought the Commanders were just a joke of a team. Why not pick up not a joke of a quarterback, but like the guy who nobody really wants, But hey, maybe more teams should have. Through 2 games, he's like statistically one of the top quarterbacks, and I don't know. What do you think about that, Q?
I mean, definitely impressive stat line. He did well for sure. I think I was far more impressed with Jared Goff. Goff just played an amazing game. Like it was like one of those things where it was like play after play after play. Like he just like completing and just like, it was just nice. It was nice. And it's good to see Goff, kind of do his thing after leaving the Rams.
Because of this man right here.
Amon Ra.
He Sun God, man.
He is something different. Like
that is. Yeah, without too much to go off of early in the season, I think you got to look at what the quarterbacks are actually doing. And again, hyper targeting, who you think is your most talented guy.
Yeah.
They even gave him a couple of handoffs. He carried the ball twice for 68 yards. He ripped off that 58-yarder. Not to forget, he had another 10-yard run on top of this 116-2 receiving line with 12 targets. I mean,
Yeah,
is
that's
this
insane.
is Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jared Goff? Is that connection? Will that yield like Amon-Ra St. Brown superstar status at the end of the year? Is he going to be one of those guys in like that like top 10 receiver talk? Do you think?
If I'm honest, I think it can be done. And it'll be tough. And I think he'll be in like the latter half, of course, but top 10 receivers, I think he can do it. Um, it's just like him and Jared got to be like synced this season. Like the chemistry needs to look how it looked last game.
No,
Like in order for that to happen. And if that does happen, easily top 10. Easily top 10. Because Amon-Ra is skilled. Like you can tell he's skilled.
for sure.
They just need to be on the same page about things. Because, yeah. I mean, it was a really good game overall for the Lions, I think,
Definitely. I've also been I've always been high on DeAndre Swift as well. I was very impressed with him. Looks like they give Jamal Williams a little bit more run in this game, but I mean, you can see. I mean, he out yardaged Williams on 5 to 12 touches. That's pretty incredible. I'm not ready to declare the Lions like the next great thing to happen to the NFL, but I do think we've seen enough from this team and their head coach Dan Campbell that they've rebuilt the like integrity of this team, the kind of structure of it, and I think we're seeing like the foundation being built of something better. I do agree this was a great game by Goff. I wonder if he can keep it up. I think the Lions are really only limited by how far Jared Goff can take them, which might mean all the way to the playoffs, but might not. That's ultimately Sean McVay with the Rams did not get rid of Jared Goff because he thought he was a quarterback that was going to win him Super Bowls. He got rid of him because he thinks he's a quarterback who won't be able to do that. So quickly on the other side of the ball, your boy Antonio Gibson, he's getting the ball, rushing attempts, he's getting the volume. The efficiency is not there. He did get a tutty, did get into the end zone. But there's some other weapons that have surprised me. Curtis Samuel being one. He reminds me of a different Samuel right now. He's kind of got that Debo vibe going on where over these first 2 weeks, he's carried the ball like I want to say 5, 6, 7 times, something like that. Only once here, but a few more times last week. And also showing up on the receiving stats too. Bunch of targets, leading the team in targets, I think at this point, leading the team in receptions, I think, yards. They got the rookie Dotson and like the third man up kind of Terry McLaurin, who's been their alpha receiver. Like they just paid him over the offseason. I mean, what do you think of the Commanders? I think they got a good trio, young receiving trio. Carson Wentz, like, are they the real deal? Similar to the question I asked you about the Lions. Are we seeing like a good team in Washington, or is the ride almost over?
I think they're not necessarily like a good or great team. They're just like middle line, like a solid team. Like Curtis Samuel, a lot of people didn't even draft this guy for their fantasy leagues. Like a lot of people didn't believe in this guy. So he's probably sitting on a lot of people's waivers right now. But he's really been impressing me, honestly. Like just flat out, like both weeks 1 and 2, he's had really good games. So and Antonio Gibson too. A lot of people discounted Antonio Gibson thinking like, oh, he's not going to do any work this season. Like I actually had a couple people that I told that I drafted Antonio Gibson tell me like, oh, he's not going to do anything. He had 2 solid weeks for, the position in the draft that I got him in. Like he's had 2 solid weeks. So
I wouldn't necessarily call this last week solid. I would say it's saved by the fact he got in the end zone. You want to see more than 28 yards and a 2. So here's the other thing too, is I think there's more news coming out about Brian Robinson, who is the RB1 for this team, who got shot with only like 10 days or whatever before the NFL season was to start. I've been hearing he should be getting back into the lineup about week 4 or so. So I mean, I'm going to stay firm where I was. I like Gibson as a player, but I think he's going to lose a ton of opportunities unless he just completely shows out over the next couple weeks. I think you're going to see Robinson come in and be the RB1 for that team. Sad to say for you. I think Gibson will be relegated down to RB2 and kick return duties.
Yeah.
One more note on Curtis Samuel before we move on. For those who don't know, the head coach of the Commanders, Ron Rivera, was the longtime coach of like Cam Newton and the Panthers in Carolina, where Samuel was originally. I think he was drafted there. Suffered a lot of injuries that kept him out of the game, but there was already like a little bromance budding there. They always thought Samuel could be this guy who was used almost in like a Christian McCaffrey type of way. Now I think Debo with last year's performance kind of showed a new way you can use receivers in this hybrid way, and now they're like, oh, we got a Samuel. So Ron Rivera still in love with this guy, Curtis Samuel. I believe in that, at least, even if I don't believe in the team. I believe in Curtis Samuel's ability, I think, at this point. So all right, next game up, Patriots Steelers. Do we want to click in here, Q? First question. Not a lot happened.
Yeah, we don't want to click in here. This was like, I knew this is probably going to be a close game. Just thinking Mac Jones, I watched this game too. I think he only had like one interception. And yeah, it was like the same thing for Mitch. So yeah, it went exactly how I expected it to be. Obviously the Patriots came out on top. In terms of like anyone that really impressed me on both sides, not really. Like it was just like an average game. Like no one had like an outstanding game. Like Damian Harris, I think he had a couple yards and like a touchdown, so it was solid. But
well, that's good because we need to speed up through this one anyway. I will just say, I think if TJ Watt is able to suit up, which obviously he's gone for a while, I think this game is easily won by the Steelers. I know one player doesn't make or break the game, but it really seemed, like you said, like Mac Jones didn't have a horrible game, which the Steelers are still a good defense. But when they have Watt, they're an amazing defense. And Jones would have had a terrible game. Steelers would have won, but we can't play the woulda, coulda, shoulda game. For me, nobody really stands out in this game. The only other piece of news from this is that in the aftermath of this, I think Tomlin, the head coach for the Steelers, was asked, is there any thought to putting in Kenny Pickett, the rookie quarterback, instead of Trubisky? And he said no. The idea is that he's going to be sitting for a whole year, a la Patrick Mahomes sitting behind Alex Smith for a year, or Trey Lance sitting behind Jimmy Garoppolo. He wants to do that thing. He wants him to be ready by the time they put him in so that he can actually build his confidence and not just come in and get his soul shattered for a whole season.
Yeah, no,
by losing every game.
Agree with that. I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad thing, especially the way Mitch has played so far. But man, if we see Mitchell Trubisky, like the Chicago version of Mitch, I say F all that. Throw Kenny Pickett in there, man, because Pickett looked good, but Trubisky's looking good too. I'm not saying bench him, but if he doesn't keep it up, I say bench him.
Yeah.
All right, next one up here, Q. Falcons, Rams. What do you think here?
Man, oh man. I think that the Rams should have done a lot better in this game. I am a Rams fan. And I don't think they should have nearly struggled as much as they did with this Falcons team. I also think, I'm pretty sure Cooper Kupp didn't play like the whole first half. He only played the second half. Or
still got 14 targets, though.
Still got 14 targets. Still did his thing for sure, but he wasn't there for the beginning of the game. Cam Akers, yikes. Yeah, he's not getting it done. And I know the coaching staff is not happy with Cam Akers right now. Like, I just know it. I know it because McVay said something in the media the other day. I can't remember exactly what he said, but he said something about Cam Akers and not being, happy. And then Cam Akers responded to, he was surprised that he said that. But like, bro, they're giving you 15 rushes and you're not delivering. Like in even the first game, last game, I think they only gave him 3 rushes.
Yeah.
But this game, they increased that a little bit more and he just didn't do anything with it.
Well, okay. So just to put it into context, this is a guy coming off of injury, right? And last week he only had, I think, 3 touches all game. So and Darrell Henderson had a boatload of touches last week. So this week, I think you actually got to look at the actions of the coaching staff more than what they say. Because, I mean, media can twist something, they say something like kind of neutral about a guy and they'll be like, oh, he said you're terrible, man. Like, what do you think of that? Like, you never know when the media is doing that. I don't think I saw the exact thing that you might be talking about from McVay, but I think it's a huge thing that they gave him more touches than Henderson, especially coming off of last week where he had so few. I think what we're seeing here is a guy who's just getting his traction back from an injury last year. And I think they do still, I mean, maybe it's not as clear, but I still think they see Akers as the number one in this backfield. I would still bet on Akers at the end of the year being the guy over Henderson as far as like the amount of carries and any other stats really that matter. Although I will say Henderson's a good back. It's always been which back do they believe in more, and I still think so far it's Akers. You can only be disappointed in a guy if you had some high hopes for him. So I think that's clearly there. The Falcons on the other side of the ball, man, they're 0-2, but they don't look terrible. I'll say this, similar to like the Mitchell Trubisky situation. Mariota is one of those guys, just, first time around, first team, didn't quite work out. Nothing terrible, not an embarrassing quarterback. He wasn't embarrassing, I don't think, in this one. They're not a great team, but I think they're in the category of team where they're not going to the playoffs, but they're going to win some games late in the season that will affect the playoff race because they can beat a playoff team. I mean, they almost beat the Rams. So I think we're going to see them be a factor, beating some teams late in the season. But I don't even really care to talk about many people in this. Maybe Drake London, rookie. Yeah, high draft capital, first round receiver, another top 10 pick. I'm almost positive. Another, receivers are the trendy, like high value, like round one picks lately. And Drake London's no exception. Probably a future superstar for this team. But again, I'd call for the same thing here as with the Steelers. Mariota's doing a heck of a job. He's going out there giving it his all. I think it's a capacity issue. I don't think he's really like inarguably like a starting caliber quarterback. And I think I'd love to see Desmond Ridder out there. I think he's got dynamic playmaking ability. He's fun to watch. And Mariota, the reason they picked him, I think, is because it's similar. Like they have a similar play style a little bit. They run the ball. I think Ritter's going to be better than Mariota, have a better NFL career overall. I'm excited to see when he takes over the team. And that's what I got. All right. Moving along, because I know we're trying to get out of here. We are not on pace that we talked about, but we'll try to move quick here. Seahawks and 49ers. We don't have to dwell on this one super long, but I got to touch on my boy Trey Lance. Rest well, sweet prince. Couldn't make it 2 full games this year. He went down in the first quarter, screwed one of my teams in fantasy because of that, but it's not his fault. This just, in my opinion, he went out for the season. For those who don't know, he broke his ankle, essentially, similar to the Dak Prescott injury. What was it, 2 years ago? Whatever it was, last year. Who knows what the future is? I mean, he's obviously still under contract. I think the Niners still plan on him being the future. And I think that organizationally, the way they handled the Jimmy Garoppolo situation over the offseason now looks like just genius. They wouldn't give him away for nothing. They weren't going to pull a Baker Mayfield and take a 7th for him. They're like, no, he's worth more than that. He can start. And, when push came to shove, they didn't want to pay him the 26 or 28 million he was due, but Jimmy wasn't going to have a chance to play anywhere. So he renegotiated. I think he gets a base of like 6 million. And now he's going to max out the incentives on his contract for all the incentive laden like bonuses he can get. Because he's going to start every game. I think he gets like $250,000 every time he starts a game, or every time he like takes more snaps than Trey, or however it's worded in the thing, which is going to be every game. So
I think he got like a $350,000 bonus.
Last
game,
it's crazy. Like a suit up bonus. I think that is what it is. So he's going to still make a great amount of money. The Niners are going to be happy to pay him that money because they need him. I mean, maybe the only team that is at least confident that if their QB1 goes down, they have a guy who can step right up and they still feel like, hey, we're going to the playoffs. I don't know. There's another team that feels that way,
I would agree, honestly.
I can't be more happy that my Niners are the team that brought their like longtime rivals now back down to earth. Everybody was saying Geno Smith is like better than Russell Wilson ever was. Kind of like people were getting out of hand with some of this hype for the Seahawks.
I don't know about that.
I think they got way up to beat Russ. that week 1, playing Denver. They wanted to beat Russ. They wanted to show him that they're good too, and that he didn't have to go somewhere to win games. But ultimately, I think Russ did make the right choice, because I don't think the Seahawks are going to win very many games, and they didn't look good here at all. The Niners defense, man. Whew. I know it's not your favorite team, but I mean, especially with Watt going down in Pittsburgh, I think not even just being a homer here, I think the Niners have the best defense in the league. Like,
oh wow,
I don't know. I mean, as long as Nick Bosa is healthy there, and they did revamp the back end, we got a new cornerback, CB1, and Mooney Ward, Travarius Ward from the Chiefs over the offseason. Like, that's what we've always missed, and we finally have that. We're even down a starting safety right now. We have been all year so far. We look good, man. I think we're going to be good here. What do you think about this game, though, Q?
I think, I don't know. Like, honestly, super unfortunate with Trey Lance, but like, Jimmy Garoppolo did his thing. I think, Gino, he had a really, like, I don't know. The Seahawks just really wanted to prove themselves against the Broncos, and I think that's really what it was. It was like that emotional, like, attachment to like winning that game. It's like the season opener. It was like they knew that it was like almost a playoff game for them, in the sense that they just really wanted to win that game. Because they came into this 49ers game just kind of like whatever, like not really making things work in order to get back into the game. But yeah, I mean, I would have, not to say I would have expected it after that first week, but like I'm not that surprised, honestly.
I think the only takeaway I'll say here is, if you own any of these guys on the Niners in fantasy, I think you actually probably breathe a sigh of relief a little bit here. Nobody hopes for an injury, but like, Trey Lance was an unknown, whether you thought he was going to be better or worse than Jimmy Garoppolo in his first season as a starter. But you've seen it happen with Jimmy. You saw what Debo did. Debo was the number 2 receiver in fantasy football last year, behind only Cooper Kupp, and that was with Jimmy Garoppolo. So that they can do it, So I think that you're actually somewhat relieved that the Trey Lance experience for this year is over. All right, moving on. Trying to go quick here. Bengals, Cowboys. Bengals look terrible, man. We all picked the Bengals to win their division, and they look bad so far. What do you think? Are they going to be? They're going to figure it out? Are they going to play? Are they an actual good team that has just had 2 bad games, or are they a bad team and we don't know why?
Honestly, man, I could not tell you. Like, just watching them is just confusing the heck out of me. Because like, I want to say like they're a good team that just had 2 bad games, but it's like, how do we go from like the Super Bowl last year to like this 0-2? Like, and we're not even playing teams that are like super crazy. Like, I mean, the Cowboys and the Steelers. Like,
let me ask you this. So neither of us expected the Bengals to lose this game. Whose fault do you think it is? Because, I mean, I just looked down the stat sheet here, and Joe Mixon, sure, like, you hope for over 3 yards average attempts. But, I mean, when you carry the rock a good amount, like, if you don't break a super long one, sometimes that's the way it looks. And I know I watched some of this game. I watch a lot of Red Zone, so I see, a good amount of each game, but not necessarily the whole thing. So what I saw, Mixon looked okay, not great. I mean, T. Higgins, I don't even think he suited up last week. He was back. You expect the Bengals to like take a step forward because he's like their second best receiver behind Chase. Both these guys, they had a few grabs, nothing crazy. I mean, looks like there's some drops or some incompletions going on based off the fact that they both had, four incompletions targeted at them. Hayden Hurst was targeted a lot at tight end position. Like, I just look at this. I'm like, these all look like weapons to me. How are they not scoring, especially when you have a guy like Joe Burrow at quarterback? Like, what do we do here? You get beat by freaking Cooper Rush, man. Like, how? And the Cowboys, I always say it. They're always overhyped every year. I think I'll go out on a limb here and say, I hate the word fluke game, but we'll say I think the Bengals are the better team. And maybe they look past the Cowboys a little bit, knowing that Dak was down. Maybe this was a little bit of a trap game. I'm not walking back my prediction. I think the Bengals get it together. They're too talented. The defense looked good too. I mean, we haven't been going down to like defensive metrics here, but I mean, they got some real ballers on defense.
No, listen, this is just 100% a team diff on offense and on defense. I think the Cowboys just played better, 100%.
Well, they played better. I mean, that's how they won. But are they actually like more talented players?
No. 100% Bengals has more talented players, but I just think their defense, the Cowboys defense, dude, like, first of all, the Bengals offense allowed 6 sacks. Like, that is absolutely insane.
That offensive line, that's who to blame. That's answering my question. It's the offensive line. It's
the offensive line. Like, you can't, like, no way. Like, even if it was just 2 less sacks or 3 less sacks, that would have probably made a big difference. Like, 6 total sacks is insane. Like, they can't allow that to happen.
I'll say this. The Cowboys, I do think the majority of the team is overrated, right? Like, CeeDee Lamb, pretty unproven as a number 1 receiver in the NFL. I'm not saying he's a bad receiver, but we haven't really seen him be that alpha, like, dog guy, yet. Mm-hmm. Maybe he will be, but he hasn't yet. They don't have Dak Prescott for quite a few weeks still. The one guy on this team who I do think is a complete baller is Micah Parsons. And I'll say this for the Bengals. They don't have to play him every week, and thank God, because this guy got 2 by himself. I think he's leading the league in sacks right now. I think he had 2 last week too. That dude's a dog. This defense is pretty legit, even though I think the overall team is overrated. I don't think the Cowboys are having a great season this year. Didn't think that ever really, but with that going down, congratulations, Cooper Rush, on your win here. Hopefully it's your only one, from my opinion. But the other thing about the Bengals, man, they invested some money into that O-line, and I don't know, heads are going to roll because they're supposed to be way better this year, because that was the weakness last year, and they look even worse. So maybe it's just a continuity thing. I think they replaced 3 starters on the offensive line. They shelled out some money to get good guys. Maybe it's just taking a little while for them to gel, figure it all out.
Get into it. Yeah,
that's my thesis, and that's why I think they're going to bounce back.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed.
All right, moving on to the next game. Texans at Broncos. This is one I don't think we need to click into probably. Do you have anything you want to say about this low-scoring affair?
Not a thing. It's the Texans. I would expect the Broncos to win that. Yeah.
Russ looks bad. I'll say that. Russ looks not good.
I tried to tell you guys.
Well, I mean, what did we just say about the Bengals, though? And assuming that my take is like correct at all, like the guys who got acquired to like make the team better on the offensive line, it hasn't come to fruition yet. I still believe it will, and I'd carry that over to Russ. Like, even if you aren't big on the Broncos this year, like they should score more than 16 points against the Texans. Like they should. Jerry Jeudy went out. They already lost a receiver earlier, like in training camp, I think. So, I mean, it's going to be Russ and Sutton. They have to develop that good chemistry that QB ones and wide receiver ones need to have for good teams. And it hasn't happened completely yet. I'm still calling for it. They have 2 good running backs. This team has the pieces, just hasn't put it all together yet. So
it'll take some time, I think.
Yeah, I'm not gonna back down here either. I'm not ready to pull back. I'm gonna say this: the Colts are the one I'm nervous about my playoff picks. The Broncos I'm not nervous about yet.
Yeah.
So moving on. Sorry, what's that?
No, I said we still have so much time. It's only week 2, so it's not.
Oh, totally. Yeah, overreactions are running rampant, and I'm not trying to overreact to anything yet. Exactly. And partially, the Raiders here coming up next, blowing this game. That's one of the things that gives me confidence for the Broncos. The Raiders do not look like a team that wants to win ball games. They look like a team that wants to give away ball games. Devontae Adams was a ghost in this game. I'm starting with the bad side of the Raiders because obviously there's plenty of good to talk about on the other side, or at least one real good thing to talk about. Derek Carr, he is who he is. I mean, he's not a bad quarterback, and he's also not a really, really good quarterback. He's usually pretty good at like having a decent stat line, even when they lose. That's kind of been his whole career, honestly. Like that's just the way he is. He's just good enough to hold down the starting QB job. Never really good enough to beat good teams and like make the playoffs and win games in the playoffs and things like that. look at this 99.5 QB rating. I don't love the stat, but like it just shows he's not incredible. And if you don't sync up with your guy, I mean, look how far you have to scroll down to even see Devontae Adams on here, man. Like, what is going on?
That should never be the case. And like also, and I'm not gonna lie, I would not put this game on Derek Carr. I think he had a really good game for a quarterback, like a really good game, but man, it comes down to, performance. Like just feel like they're not using, their weapons. And I think Hunter Renfrow might be dealing with the injury right now.
Yeah, he got banged up, a little concussion, sounds like.
Yeah, I think something like that. But yeah, it's super unfortunate because in order for, I think, the Raiders to even get far this season, it needs to be Devontae Adams and Hunter Renfrow going head to head, 1-2 punch. Like, that's just what it needs to be.
I'm a big fan of Renfrow, honestly. I like little like slot receiver guys, right? Like in my wildest dreams, I'm like, I almost could have been one of those guys. Like, like I could never be one of these like 6'5" outside receivers who dominates. That's just not like. But those little like shifty guys, I'm like, oh yeah, I like that play style. I don't think you can give 10 targets to Renfrow and fewer targets to Waller. I mean, he was the 4th highest targeted guy on his team behind freaking Mac Collins, man. Like, what are they doing? They are trying to lose, I swear. Like, if I didn't know better, it does look like that. And especially the way this game developed, obviously the Cardinals, like, Kyler Murray put this game on his back and won it for the Cardinals. Good job, Kyler Murray. I'm always happy when the NFC West does well, even though we're all vying for the same playoff spots against each other. The NFC West had a horrible week 1 collectively. Seattle was the only team that won, and this week was a little bit of a get-right week for the division. The NFC West plays the AFC West this year, which, if you know anything about NFL scheduling, like, they pair the divisions off a little bit. And I think the winner of these two divisions is the best division in football. I don't think most people would disagree with that. And watching Kyler beat the Raiders, it should make me upset as a Niners fan, but it didn't. It just proves to me we're in a better division. And this is why QBR doesn't matter, because he has a 77 QBR, but he won this game for them, man. When it came down to it, Kyler, with his legs, just willed them to victory. Something like 4 different, like, it was like a touchdown and a 2-point conversion and a touchdown, and another 2-point conversion or something like that in the last couple minutes. And man, it was. I'm taking this was the best game of the week. I think this was the best one.
You think so?
I do, man. I think the Tua like Miami game, like I liked it because I kind of had some stock in them. I kind of put it on air that I had some high hopes for the Dolphins this year, but like, man, there was something magical about this one. Like, just Murray daring the other team to, like, I bet you can't tackle me, man. I bet you can't. And then they get the false start penalty. I think it was delay of game, false start, whatever it was, on the 2-point conversion, moved him back to the 7-yard line. I honestly thought even from the 7, and even coming out of the shotgun, standing at like the 10-yard line, I still thought Kyler was just going to run that ball in. Then he has the cojones to literally like point straight forward into the back of the end zone and then just rocket that thing where only his guy could get it. AJ Green having a horrible game up to that point, by the way, having a horrible season up to that point. Makes the most clutch catch, shoulder blades barely in the line, like a little jostling around the ball. The shoulders had to be down, and it was in by a quarter of an inch. Like, incredible play.
Which is insane.
Incredible.
Absolutely insane. Yeah, very impressive game from the Cardinals. Zach Ertz, for sure. Impressive. Yeah.
I think Hollywood's starting to get in the mix more. He's been a little lackluster in my opinion, but he's getting all the coverage, man. Like, they are defenses are well aware without D-Hop in the game. Like, they are trying to blanket Marquise Brown, and he's still got 11 targets, but it's tough to be efficient when the defenses know that's where you want the ball to go. Actually, James Conner, I think, has been huge for them this year because he's been good so far, but he got banged up in this one. He had to leave. And I think that actually kind of helped the comeback because they go, we can't rely on running the ball. We got to make something happen with Kyler. And I think it had to go that way.
Kyler run the ball.
Yeah, that's it. Hopefully Connor's okay because I've got him in fantasy in a couple leagues. But, yeah, man, I'm pretty in on the Cardinals. but we'll see. This is one of those interesting ones. We'll be looking back at the end of this year. Like this game definitely felt like it's where the Raiders, you start to lose faith in them and maybe start to put a little faith in the Cardinals. Like, hey, they can win against pretty good teams, even in like clutch moments. Like you're seeing stuff you want to see out of Kyler Murray, and you're not seeing the stuff you want to see out of Derek Carr and Devontae Adams right now.
Yeah. Cardinals play the Rams this week, so I'm curious about that.
Ooh. Okay. Let me ask you this. Okay. We're getting there. We got to speed up so that we can get to those picks. Okay. Bears, Packers. What do we think about this one, Q?
I'm not gonna lie, thoroughly disappointed with Aaron Rodgers right now, but he always does this. He always does this. It's always the first 3 games. He just like, oh, let me just play like trash.
Well, so he needs a chip on his shoulder, man. That's his thing. He loves it when people get on him. Like the media is like, oh, is he not any good anymore? And he's like, watch me be good. Like,
it's gonna literally happen. And he always pulls it back towards the, like after the 4th game. So we'll see, but it's just I feel like he could do more. I mean, it wasn't a terrible game for him by any means. It's just I feel like he could do a little bit more. But Aaron Jones, it's a monstrous game. 15 carries, which is insane.
Love it.
18 carries on AJ Dillon.
Oh, love to see that too. This is what I always wanted to see for this offense, honestly. And maybe I'll be honest. Maybe if the game were a little closer, Rodgers has a better game. He knows he doesn't need to get up to beat the Bears. The Bears got kind of a fluke win. I hate to say it, but against the Niners week 1, that was like playing in a swimming pool. So yeah, okay, good job, Bears. You're not as good of a team as the Niners for sure. You proved it. I mean, this again, QBR doesn't mean a ton, but like when it's 43.7. I mentioned earlier in the show that Joe Flacco is leading the league with over 100 pass attempts already. Justin Fields has like 20. He has like 22 or something like that. He's done this both games. You thought the first game it was just because they were playing in that swimming pool. Oh, okay. They only did that because of that. Nope. This is their plan. He's going to throw for 70. He's going to run for 20.
Terrible.
And somehow they're going to put up. I honestly can't believe that David Montgomery is as efficient as he is on the ground. He's such an underrated back because they have nothing else going on, and he's still ripping them off. Same with Herbert, honestly, with way fewer runs, but they are efficient on the ground. When why do defenses even need to put anybody back deep against them? Like they just need to stack the box, and the Bears will have no answers. That's my firm belief.
Yeah, I mean, dude. It's tough for sure, but like just looking at their averages, they're good, but it's just like no volume, like no substance.
I disagree. They are not good. They are not good because these all come when you're losing and you're just chucking them up. You're just trying to do anything. And look at this average. Darnell Mooney supposed to be their alpha receiver.
I mean, from like a rushing standpoint.
Oh no, totally. Yeah, completely agree. Yeah, completely agree. They can't pass those. So I think we're going to see this dry up. Here's my take from this game. If you are a David Montgomery, if you're a Monty owner in fantasy, trade him now after this game. Because, I mean, he didn't even get into the end zone, but he had a pretty solid game. Definitely, like the casual fantasy football player would say, like, oh, no, he's good. I think the defenses are going to do exactly what we just said and stack the box and make life hell for these running backs. And I predict the Bears are in for a bad season, man. Unless Justin Fields really takes the next step, but you would think that he would have done that in the offseason if he was gonna. So not this year.
Is crazy. That's a stat line of a QB2, QB3.
Yeah. That's like friggin' Taysom Hill, I feel like had this many like passing attempts in the game. Like when Drew Brees was still on the team. Like
exactly.
Packers, what else can you say about them? Like we already mentioned most of the main weapons here. I mean, the Packers are going to pack. They're a decent team. We'll see what we think when we get to the predictions for next week. Moving along here, though, we got Titans and Bills. Hey, are you feeling insecure about your Super Bowl champ picks at this point? Because I'm not. We both picked the Bills, and oh my God, the Bills are incredible.
This is their year to do it, man.
Except it would be just. How many years have you seen a team look so dominant early on and then they just can't play? I mean, the playoffs is a tournament where You only have to lose one game and it's over. But that said,
Mm-hmm.
like the Bills are the best team in football right now, hands down. If you don't believe that, like you're some biased fan probably. I mean, Josh Allen lighting the world on fire. Ryan Tannehill, the exact opposite, not good at all. Tossed in Malik Willis a little bit, get a little glimpse of the future. Did not do well, but can you blame him? The Bills' defense is good. Their offense is good. Nobody's going to look good against these guys. Derrick Henry was sitting on the bench like in the first half of the third quarter. Like they were like, we're done. We give up.
The Titans are looking like top 3 worst teams in the league right now.
Yeah, they don't look good.
It's not looking good at all.
Yeah, I mean, the Bills were running some backups. Like James Cook got some carries. I mean, he's supposed to be more like the receiving back. You know, he had 1 touch last week and he fumbled the ball. So it was good to see him actually get his legs underneath him a little bit, get an actual start to his career. And then the man this week, Stephon Diggs. I mean, maybe behind Tyreek Hill is all, but maybe not. I don't even know who had a better week. Stephon Diggs is incredible. Everybody knows it, but they didn't even do anything else with anybody. I had Gabe Davis. I have him in a few leagues. In one league, I just needed a guy who was going to put up like 7 or 8 points, and I picked up Isaiah McKenzie as the last-second replacement, and the dude just couldn't get it done because by the time Stephon Diggs was done eating, there was nothing left to eat.
Yeah. No, and honestly, like Stephon Diggs, if he keeps it up, he's definitely in the talks of top receiving.
Oh yeah, for sure. It'd be disrespectful not to include him in that, for sure. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, we don't need to go too long on that. The Bills are great. Titans suck. All right, moving on. This one was actually, this is weird. I feel like without John here, this is actually kind of nice for you and me to look at this last game of the week. And kind of we both took a W on this one because in our playoff predictions episode, I predicted the Eagles were going. I'm the only one of the 3 of us who said the Eagles are going to make the playoffs. But also you were the only one of the 3 of us who said the Vikings won't. Yeah. And I think we both got a little mini W here at least. I don't necessarily think we can say they're playoff bound and they're not. But early impressions, like it feels good to be right about the Eagles on my side. And maybe you're right about the Vikings. We will see. You know, they came out of the gate week 1 with Justin Jefferson. JJ was the dog of week 1. He was the number 1 receiver on the week. And I think if I'm guessing, you probably felt like, man, I got the Vikings wrong. Like Justin Jefferson can't be stopped. You know, Kirk Cousins, above average quarterback. Dalvin Cook, like it's a good team. What the Eagles did to them was disgusting. Kirk Cousins is straight up doing like fadeaway throws last night.
Yeah.
It was bad.
Not good.
It was bad.
And all honesty, Jalen Hurts, he's looking really good, man.
Game of his life. This is an outlier of a game. I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback, but like he was making some plays that those are not going to be his average performances. You know what I mean? Like this was a friggin' showcase game. I'm a believer in the Eagles, and even I am like, don't get used to this, man. That was like the stars aligned. AJ Brown took a backseat to Devonta Smith in this one. I am so happy for Smith because I feel like, you know, he's there. Did he actually win the Heisman before he came out? I think he did. If he wasn't, he was like one of the 3 finalists. I think he did win the Heisman in college. And it was so sad to see AJ Brown get traded here. And you're like, oh, now like Smith's career just takes like a downturn because he's this like undersized, like wide receiver 2 on his team, on a team that likes to run the ball. You're like, oh no, it's going to be a bad year for him. I think he silenced a lot of his critics this week. Great performance.
Yep, 100% reception rate.
Do you think that AJ Brown still finishes off the year better than Devonta Smith?
Dang, that is really a tough one. I want to say yes.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, that was a little of a baity question. I am high on Smith, you know, but AJ Brown is the alpha here. He's a great receiver. As long as Jalen Hurts looks even half as good as he did last game, they're going to be just fine.
This is also Devonta Smith's first game. He didn't play game 1.
Did he sit week 1? Was
Yeah,
he
I
hurt?
think he did. I'm not sure what
Or he just
he
didn't show
did.
up in the box score? I thought he played. I could be wrong, though.
Maybe, well, receiving wise, I don't think he did play because he has no stat line there. But
I think he just goose egged, man. I think he played. No, he did play because he had 4 targets. I remember
did
now.
he?
Yeah, he had 4 targets. He didn't come down with any, so he stopped getting targets. But he rebounded here. Yeah, he did play. I will say this: I play in like 7 fantasy leagues. Devonta Smith hit waivers in 2 of them. If Devonta Smith is on your waiver wire in fantasy football, go pick him up.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, after we saw everything
100%.
we needed to see here. So yeah, good effort by the Eagles, actually demolishing those Vikings. I still think the Vikings can make the playoffs, but yeah, the Eagles look like the better team so far. Okay, so that wraps up the recap. Real quickly now, we are going to try to get through some picks here for next week coming up, so you guys can hold us accountable. We don't get to just kind of be like, yeah, we totally saw this coming. We're gonna have to lay it on the line ahead of time. Q, first game, Steelers Browns. We don't need to go in depth here at all. Maybe a quick sentence.
Yeah.
And who do you think will win?
I'm going to have to go with. Man, this is tough. I'm gonna have to say the Browns.
All right.
I'm not too confident on the Steelers right now.
You think Brownie the Elf makes a comeback?
Yeah, I just think they have slightly better weapons, I guess.
Okay. We're gonna disagree right out of the gate. I'm going with the Steelers. Not a great performance last week, but they're still figuring it out. I mean, I can't overstate the importance of losing TJ Watt. That sucks for them. But they are still a good team, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. Even without him, I think they're going to click a little bit better. Just takes some getting used to missing that guy. So, and for what it's worth, I don't always trust coach speak. I think at a certain point in the season, Kenny Pickett could get some run if Trubisky doesn't play well. So obviously not in this game, but I'm going to take the Steelers here. So right away we are separated. Next game up, you went first there, so I'll go first here. Yeah, I'm going with the Saints. I don't need to say a lot about it. I think Jameis, Mike Thomas, Jarvis Landry, and Chris Olave. That's all I need to know. They're still figuring it out at the very least in Carolina. Not sure they ever will, but I'm going Saints.
I agree. Saints 100%. There's no question about that for me.
Sorry, Baker. I hope Baker gets a legitimate shot at being like a good quarterback someday, or even like a decent quarterback. Because the man just bad situation to bad situation. But we'll see later. Eagles at Washington. You're up here first.
I'm gonna go with the Eagles 100%. Way Jalen Hurts has been playing, absolutely amazing. Washington just, like I said, they're not like a good or great team, very baseline. Don't even think they'll get to the playoffs, but yeah, Eagles.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on this one. I'm with the Eagles. I actually think, obviously they had a good defensive performance against the Vikings this last week, but I'm calling for a lot of points on both sides of the ball here this game. I think Jalen Hurts wants to show it's not a fluke. He wants to air it out a little bit, and Washington already has been. I mean, I didn't expect it, but they've been playing pretty well lately. I think the Eagles are going to win, but it's going to be a high-scoring game. So, yeah, fly, Eagles, fly. Next up, this one's me first. Ravens at Pats. Yeah, okay. So we've snubbed the Ravens a little bit, but yeah, I'm calling for the Ravens to win this one. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Ravens. I think it'll be a breeze for them. Honestly, I don't think they should struggle too much with this one.
Feels like every week there's just like one deep shot for Rashad Bateman, but besides that is like all Lamar and a little sprinkling of Mark Andrews. But I think that's all they're going to need in this one. And I think that defense is embarrassed, and they're going to take it out on the Patriots, who have a much worse offense than they faced last week. So, so we're pretty much in agreement all the way here, except for that first matchup right now. So, okay. Texans at Bears. This one's you first, Q. Which way are you leaning here?
This is a bad team versus a bad team, so I'm gonna just go with the Bears because they're both bad. Um, it's just which one's worse at this point? Like, yeah, I don't know.
Agreed. Is poor team versus poor team, but maybe just I'm pretty much a coin flip here, but maybe it's just the Bears beating the Niners in that weird first week game. I'm gonna go with the Texans here. So we're actually different on 2. So we will see.
Oh, wow.
I'm gonna see how this shakes out. So really, there's only 2 games we need to remember, just the ones we really are different on. Because of course, this is like a competition. It feels like. I mean, who's gonna get more?
So
right?
if the Texans beat the Bears, then the Texans are better than the 49ers.
Yeah, that's how football math works. Totally.
Okay, next one.
Next one, the Raiders and the Titans. Somebody is getting their first win of the season here. So excited for somebody already.
Who's it going to be?
Oh, it's my turn first. Okay. I hate this one. Okay. But I'm going to go for the more talented team is going to bounce back. I think this feels not fun to pick either team here because they both just leave a gross taste in my mouth. But I'm going to go with the Raiders. They got to just – if there's one thing they have to say after last game, it's like, we got to give the ball to Devontae more often. So if he doesn't get 10 targets in this game, then they deserve to lose. But if they do give him 10 targets, I think they'll win. So I'm going to go with 3.
Yeah, I agree. I thought you had me worried there for a bit. I thought you were going to say the Titans. The Titans.
Well, I do think the Titans are the Titans have a better head coach, I think. I like Vrabel, and even like when Derrick Henry is really crushing, like, what else do you even need on offense? But it's just not looking good right now. So, all right, we're in agreement there. Your turn to pick first. Lions, Vikings.
Go with the Vikings with this one.
Okay.
I think Kirk could pull it off. And I think they're overall just a better team than the Lions, anyways. But yeah.
This will be the one here. In my opinion, like, it's early still in the season for sure. We don't want to like overestimate anybody or underestimate anybody because of early season stuff. But if the Lions pull off this upset, because the Vikings looked horrible. So there's always the chance they look the same when we see them next. But they're almost a 7-point favorite. If the Lions pull off this upset victory, I'm almost ready to say, like, hey, the Lions could be playoff bound and the Vikings might not be. But
yeah, this is like
I don't believe that's going to happen. I'm going to say the Vikings have a get-right game here, even though I am loving – I mean, everybody's on the they were on the show, Hard Knocks. Everybody was on the Lions already because of Hard Knocks. I mean, it's fun to be on that bandwagon because their head coach is like a meme. That guy, Dan Campbell, he's just that, like, prototypical head coach when you think of, like, what does a head coach look like? It's him. It's kind of hilarious. And I want to root for him, but no, man, the Vikings are going to win.
Yeah.
Next up, Bengals and Jets. What do we think here? This one is sneaky tough, actually.
I'm not gonna disrespect the Bengals like that. I'm gonna go with the Bengals. I think I want to chalk it down to like a bad 2 first weeks of the season. And just hopefully this humbles them losing those 2 games. And they just come back ready to go. So I'll give that to the Bengals.
I just did you dirty. I made you pick twice in a row. So just to make it fair, I'm going to pick the next 2 first. But I'm going with you on the Bengals here because, again, you don't want to call somebody out of the playoffs early in the season. But if you go 0-3, I know that the odds of you making the playoffs just become not insurmountable, but tough, real tough. So the Bengals are in a must-win opportunity here. And I don't think the Jets are going to completely roll over, but yeah, they haven't inspired all that confidence, honestly. The Bengals defense is good enough to, I think, pull this one off. And the offense just has to be alive in any way. So I have to pick the next 2 first here, just as a reminder. We're still in agreement on everything but 2 matchups, I think. I'm going with the Chiefs over the Colts here. It's going to be a rocky start for these Colts, and the Chiefs are looking good early. Yeah, I don't know how the Colts are going to turn around their season. I still think they can, but I don't think it's starting in week 3. They're going to have to do that in like week 4 or later.
Yeah, honestly, I don't have much to say about this one. Easily the Chiefs, and it's not.
But how many points? How many points do you think they win by?
the score is going to be 37-7.
Oh, a 30-point victory. Man, you better go put some money on this then, Q. It's only a 6.5-point spread. That's actually shocking. I would think 30 isn't where I'd probably put the line, but like, yeah, you should go put some money on that. Yeah, it's not going to be pretty, I don't think. But maybe I'll spin this into a positive for the Colts. This is going to be the bad beating they need to really instill into them, like, hey, we need to get our shit together. Like, so, and then next up here, Bills at Dolphins. Oh, one team's getting their first loss of this one. And you don't know how bad I want to go sneaky here. But it just feels like it'd be stupid if I did. Like, the Bills look so good. But for what it's worth, I'm going Bills. But for what it's worth, if the Dolphins do win, shocked won't be the right word for how I feel. I'll be like, we knew they could do it because they can overcome anything if they can overcome what they just did last week. So what do you think, Hugh?
I'm going to have to disagree with you on this one. And I'm going to say that the Dolphins are going to win. And I think it's simply because the Bills are going to lose. And I think if there's any team that they could lose to, it's going to be the Dolphins. With that being said, this is going to be a great game. 100%. Undoubtedly, it's going to be a great game. Both teams are really good. But I'm going to have to go with the Dolphins on this one as an upset.
You know, every year they take some games that are like regularly scheduled times and they flex them into prime time. I kind of wish they would do that for this game. I agree. This is going to be a hell of a game to watch. Even if one team goes up by like a couple scores, like, so what? You know, like that doesn't put either one of these teams out of contention. So, yeah, I actually agree that it's going to be a good game. I am very shocked you took the Dolphins, but I respect it. That's a reach that I almost wanted to do myself, but you know, if we're trying to get it right, I want the Bills.
I know that, like I said, I know they're going to lose. So I think the Dolphins is one of the teams in the leagues right now that is capable out of any of the teams of beating the Bills.
I even respect that logic because on a yearly basis, I would be saying the same kind of thing, but I don't know that I've seen a team as dominant as the Bills in the first 2 weeks. And it's so early to say anything like this, but barring like major injuries, like the last like couple decades, if there's a team I've ever seen that I thought could potentially, maybe even slightly, possibly go undefeated, it is these Bills, man. They look good, so I'm not betting against them.
That would be nice.
All right, you're back up first on these ones now. Jags at Chargers.
This one's quite simple. Easily Chargers. Yeah, I don't think it'll be close either. Hence, the spread.
Yeah, I'm taking the Chargers, but depending on how the game goes, I think there's a chance the Jags beat the spread. Maybe. I think Trevor Lawrence is one of the quarterbacks who does look better than last year. You know, I don't think Fields does. Even if I'm being honest, like Lance hadn't shown that yet before he got injured, that he was like, you know, obviously he played in a swimming pool in week 1, and then he played less than a quarter in week 2. So I couldn't even fully say Lance took a step forward, but Trevor Lawrence looks like he has taken a step forward. And I still think they are like a year away from being like a much better team, but they're going to be the team that upsets some teams better than them. I'm not calling for it here, but they're going to beat some good teams this year. I believe that. But I'm going Chargers. So next up, Rams at Cardinals. All right, I am interested in this one because, yeah, if last week's Cardinals game doesn't go the way it does, this is a slam dunk pick, right? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'll go – no, I can't do it. I'm going Rams. If they had Hopkins, I'm taking the Cards all day. I hope the Cardinals have a matchup with the Rams when D-Hop gets back. I don't know their schedule, but I hope they do.
Yeah.
But what do you think?
Yeah. You already know what I'm picking. It's not even a question. I'm going with the Rams here. But, Arizona's looking good. I think they still do need D-Hop. But we'll see.
I think the Rams better go up by a few scores because you don't want Tyler in a one-score game with the ball in his hands.
Rams are gonna need an early start for sure. They're gonna for sure need to get Cooper in the game like solidified within the first half. Like he needs to be like ready to
If the
go.
Rams don't win the first half of the game, then I think it's over.
I think it's over too. I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
Nice. All right, so you're up first on this one. We're still only different on 3 now, I guess. But Packers at Tampa Bay. Ooh,
I'm gonna have to go with Tampa Bay with this one. Like I said earlier, I think Aaron Rodgers does this to himself. He purposefully, maybe not purposefully, but instinctively maybe likes to just lose games in the beginning of the season so everyone starts talking shit about him, and then he just goes in the media, he's like, this is just what I do, like just wait, like it's coming. And then he just goes out there weeks 4 or 5 to the rest of the season and then just destroys everyone. So yeah, this is just him loading up. He's loading up,
bro.
It's
this one I think is going to be a close game, if for no other reason because I don't know who Tom Brady's going to throw to. Honestly, like if Mike Evans' suspension holds up, it's going to be ugly, man. There's going to be a lot of little dump offs to Lenny. But that said, the Packers haven't looked that good, and I think the Bucs have the better defense, so I'm going to go with the Bucs too. Better team. Yeah. Falcons at Seahawks. This one's mine to pick first. You know what? I'm gonna take the dogs here. I'm gonna take the Falcons. I think they can pull this off. I think there's some encouraging stuff going on there, and I think the Seahawks are on a downward slide.
I'm gonna have to go with the Seahawks. I think the Falcons have just been playing like absolute trash. Not impressive at all. At least the Seahawks, they were pretty impressive in that first game of the season. But the Falcons have
momentum versus like what have you shown me so far? I guess that's
what have you shown me thus far? And the Falcons haven't shown me much. So
I think they're building now. I like that. I like that. We got 2 different sides in the bird game there. All right, moving on. Niners at Broncos. Q, you're up.
I would be a first for this.
That's shocking to me that it's that close, honestly.
Yeah, this one I'm going to. Dang, this might be the hardest one, to be honest.
Ooh.
This might be the hardest one. But if I had to give it to a team, I would have to go. Considering, I'm just go with the Broncos. Honestly,
okay, all right.
Sorry to do it to you. I mean, Jimmy G, like he's QB2. Like he can start, of course, but like
he was QB1 last year, and they won the whole. Like they got to the conference championship.
This is a different time, though. Like they've spent so much resources and like time on Trey, and like he's just been like he's been leading the charge, leading the team for the last how long training camp they'd had. But I don't know. I just think Russ is gonna pull this one off. It'll be a good game.
You better pull out that old Champ Bailey jersey and kill the Broncos because they're
That's the young Broncos fan Q that's talking right there.
No, I get it. I was a huge fan of them too. I mean, back when they were super good in the 90s, their coach was Mike Shanahan, father of current 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan. So a lot of history shared between these two teams. And the Broncos, I do think, are a good team. I think they pull it together. I think this is that game where they lose. I think I'm taking the Niners. I think the defense is going to be the best defense the Broncos have played so far this year. And I don't think Russ has his get-right game here. I think that's coming because I've hated Russell Wilson for his whole career, being that he was in Seattle. But, like, he's better than what we've seen so far. I mean, obviously he's better than how bad he's played. So I just think it might take week 4 is when he's going to rebound, not week 3. So I'm going Niners here. You got the Broncos. That's another one we disagree on. We'll recap those really quick after we finish up on this game here. Last game, I pick first. And I guess I'm taking the favorites. I'm taking the Giants. Cowboys backup QB. It scares me because that defense can still play. But the Giants, they've been pulling them out. They got Saquon. Even Daniel Jones might rip off a big run. Might even complete a pass or two. Who knows? I don't feel great about it, but I'm taking the Giants. This is the game that the NFL should take and swap with that other game that we said was going to be great. This one here. They need to just flip-flop these two. Why would you ever have this one as the Monday night primetime game? It looks gross. Because it's just the Cowboys. America's team. Yeah. All right, who are you taking?
I'm going to have to go with the Cowboys. Okay. I think the Giants have pulled off two swift ones on us, getting by. But I think, and I honestly don't even like to say this because I truly despise the Cowboys. Like, I don't like that team at all. But if I'm honest, I just think, they're going to win. Even without Dak, like, they're going to win.
I get you. I mean, they just did. So, yeah, anything could. This one wouldn't surprise me, honestly. I just wish they would get rid of this game from Monday night. That's a stupid game. Nobody's going to have any fantasy assets here, really, to speak of. So,
literally.
Nobody's getting a Monday night miracle for their fantasy matchup. Yeah, I don't think so.
Unless you have, like, CD Lamb or something.
Yeah, that's the only guy that comes to mind. Maybe Dalton Schultz, but with the backup quarterback, I don't even think you roster him anymore. So real quick, just to recap these, we agreed on – no, we didn't agree here. I picked Steelers, you picked Browns, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then we both picked the Saints, and we both picked the Eagles. We both picked the Ravens. You took the Bears. I took the Texans. Yes. I took – the Raiders, you took the Raiders. We both took the Raiders. Yeah. We both took the Vikings. Yeah, we both took the Vikings.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Here we both took the Bengals. Here we both took the Chiefs. Here I took the Bills and you took the Dolphins.
Yes.
Here we had we both took the Chargers. We both took the Rams. We both took the Bucks. I took the Falcons. You took the Seahawks. Mm-hmm. I took the Niners. You took the Broncos. And I took the Giants. You took the Cowboys. So we have a lot different in this like later window.
Yeah.
This will be decided late who kind of wins the week here.
I'm looking forward to it, honestly.
Yeah, man. I mean, nothing on the line here. Just for fun. Just for street cred for the Triple Cross community. So Triple Cross, those are our picks, and that was our wrap-up of the past week. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. For myself and Clueless Q down there, let's get a shot of our faces before we sign off here. That's going to do it for us. Q, do you have any parting words before we go?
Go Rams. Let's get this money.
Gross.
Let's get this money. Let's go. Let's get back in the Super Bowl this year. Listen, we don't have Von Miller anymore, but it's okay. He's on a better team now, and we got to overcome that team. Yeah. So let's get it done. Cam Akers, I want to see more from you. Ooh,
you think he's going to watch this?
Yes, he is. He's going to hear my voice, and he's going to be inspired.
Okay. Well, in that vein, I'm going to say, hey, Jimmy, I know you watch this. First of all, I never wanted the Niners to get rid of you. I did want you to be QB2. I thought you were the best QB2 in the league. Now you're the guy. Again, go Jimmy. Most handsome quarterback in the league. Just hands down. And yeah, Jimmy's going to do what Jimmy does and win games for us. So thank you, Jimmy. I'm calling it early. All right. That's going to do it. Guys. Until next time. Bye.